Hey everyone, Randy Brown here to do a little math with you today. Math, solve for black belt. Legitimate question in martial arts that you hear a lot is how long is it going to take me to achieve black belt? Completely understand why people ask this question, and it varies widely from school to school, which is a topic for another day, another time. What we want to do today is get some perspective on why it can take so long to achieve this level in martial arts, and what does it mean to be a black belt? Back to our topic, mastery, 10,000 hours. So let's look at that. You got 10,000 hours, and let's say the average student is going to come in, let's say twice a week to a martial arts class. That's an hour-long class, 2 hours a week. We won't account for illnesses, problems with your kids, injuries, any of that stuff. So we'll just say 50. Keep it nice and simple. 50 weeks a year that we train out of the 52. At 2 hours a week equals 100 hours. 10,000 hours divided by 100 hours . 100 years for mastery. And that right there is why most of us will never achieve that level in our lifetime. Because unless we choose to commit and dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly to some endeavor, then we just won't get there. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But today is all about perspective and what to expect from ourselves. So we talked about black belt is not a master. So let's go and let's extrapolate this into what it means to be a black belt. How many hours is that? And again, that can vary drastically from teacher to teacher. But from my experience as a coach and a practitioner, I have 2 black belts myself in 2 different arts. And basing from my experience between that and coaching others, I'll say 2,000 hours. And again, this is an arbitrary number. It depends on your instructor. But let's say 2,000 hours. So we take that 2,000 and we now divide it by that 100 hours a year. $20 years to black belt. So, again, do you have 20 years to dedicate to martial arts? Some of us will, some of us won't. Some of us, it's just a hobby, and that's okay. Again, we all have to have our own goals, our own path, but this puts things in perspective, right? Because if we're training for 5 months at 2 hours a week, at the end of 5 months, we've only done 40 hours of training. 40 hours in America is the equivalent of the average full-time job. So you just worked 1 week. In that 5 months, you did 1 week of work. How many of you felt proficient, confident, and capable at your job after 1 week? See how silly it is to expect that after 5 months of martial arts coming twice a week that we should be proficient? This always amazes me when I see a student have this, it happens. They come in and they think that they should be beating the people that have been doing this for years, but they've only been training basically 1 week. It's ridiculous when we hear this out loud. It really puts some perspective on things and makes us understand maybe we're expecting a little too much of ourselves. If this is all we can dedicate is that 2 hours a week, we should be aware of that so we don't try to overstep our bounds or expect too much, which can create anxiety, undue pressure, and ridiculous expectations on ourselves. But this is changeable too. So Now, if you did have a job that after 1 week of work full time, you felt proficient, confident, capable of doing that job, you probably were already replaced by a robot or will be in the near future. Because for a lot of us, 1 week is not enough to learn something and to be really good at it. And in martial arts, there's a lot going on. So, let's take this a little bit further and look deeper at how we can fix this. Well, okay, let's say we come in 50 weeks a year and we train 4 times a week. Now we put in 200 hours. Okay, so we have that 2,000 hours for black belt divided by 200, and now we achieve that black belt in 10 years. Well, let's take it a step further. Double that. Now we can see that, training 8 hours a week at 400 hours a year, 5 years, we can achieve that. That's fast, in my experience, for black belt. In the schools that I came from and the way I run my school, that's incredibly fast. But it makes it a little bit more achievable and reasonable. We put more time into something, we can achieve our goal faster if that black belt is our goal. And if it's not, if it just seems like, oh, that's ridiculous, I don't have that kind of time, that's okay. Not everybody needs to be a black belt. Not everybody gets a PhD or even a master's degree or even a college degree. And they get through life just fine. Some people don't even make it through high school and make it through life more than fine. Because they found something, to give an example, they found something and dedicated themselves to it and committed themselves to it and got to a really high level of proficiency where they became a master in that field, and they didn't need that. Some of us do. Some of us need that higher education. But we can solve this problem by training more. And I think what's important here, another piece of perspective is, this 400 hours, say, a year, doesn't all have to be time on the mats. That's also time watching videos, time shadow boxing, time doing forms, time doing drills on the floor for jiu-jitsu, say, or doing push-ups, strengthening ourselves, getting our coordination up there, reading books about it, learning as much as we possibly can outside of class so that when we're in class, it helps propel us towards our goal faster. Now, can we achieve that black belt without mat time? No. Can we achieve the black belt with just mat time? Yes. Most of us don't have 8 hours a week, 50 weeks a year to devote to something like this. That's living that lifestyle like I do. And a lot of people can't do that. And I'll give you guys a little bit of insight to my own process with this and frustrations. Early on as a coach running a school, I used to get incredibly frustrated with my students. Like, you're just not working hard enough. What's the problem? Why don't you do this more? Why don't you show up to class more, right? I had unreasonable expectations on my students because not every student that comes through my door wants to be a black belt or wants to be extremely proficient at this. Or maybe they do, but they understand that that's not going to happen. Some of us, it's just a hobby. Others, it's a profession. And it's okay to be a hobbyist and just understand that this might not be where our end is. Or if it is, maybe it's 10, 20 years away. And that's okay too. Because It's a journey, and it's a process that if you really enjoy it, it becomes a lifestyle. Whether it's your full-time job or not, it can still be your lifestyle. Keep this in mind as you go through your journey to help keep things in perspective and take some pressure off of yourself and maybe release some anxiety and expectations that you had or didn't know you might have had. Hope that helps you out. See you next time.